we're gonna get started. I'm gonna start with my favorite color of all time, fluorescent pink. I love Golden's fluid acrylics. I also love Liquitex fluorescent pink. They have slightly different color formulations in my opinion. This one looks a little bit more warmer to me. We're going to use this today, and I'm going to do an underpainting. So I already started by putting a thin layer of fluorescent pink onto my canvas, and I sketched out my swan. I'm also going to continue to add to this underpainting. I want this swan to be glowing, and it's going to be a nighttime scene. So I'm just going to trace out my swan sketch here. It's not very precise, it's loose, but I want this pink to peek through. So I'm just thinking about where the shadows are going to be. And I'm going to make the swan a light source itself. So it's going to look illuminated. And in order to do that, I'm going to use lots of light colors here in the base of the body. And here I'm going to add a little tiny moon. And it's going to be dark at the top. So what I'm going to do is make a little gradient with my pink as an underpainting. And I'm taking my spray bottle and I'm spraying that pink so that it's a little more thin. And I'm just blending it out all the way to the bottom of the horizon. And this underpainting doesn't have to be perfect. It's just a loose sketch of what you want to do. I'm going to do the same thing for the water here. So it's going to go from slightly dark to lighter here in front. So the swan's going to be a light source, but the moon here is also going to be a light source. So we're going to leave it lighter around the swan. And these are just approximate values. When you're blocking in an underpainting, it's really just to get you started. And for me, it's important to use pink for my underpaintings because I love how it interacts with the colors that I use, and I love how it peeks through the painting. So then I'm just going to take out a little tiny speck. I'm just using my finger for the moon. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to add a couple more values with my pink. So I'm just going to darken the snout, or I guess I don't know what the word is for a swan. So I painted a swan recently and I just really enjoyed that. It was very calming and soothing for me to think of a beautiful white swan floating on the water, and it brought me peace. So much so that I knew I wanted to paint another one, but this time at night. So the other one that I painted was more of a sunset situation. And I painted a glowing lotus a couple months ago, and I really enjoyed that as well. It was a very similar feeling of peace, and I wanted to kind of recreate a similar vibe for this beautiful solitary swan here. Okay, so we have our loose underpainting for our swan friend. Now I'm going to let this underpainting dry, and then I'm going to start with color on the next layer. Okay, now we're going to get started with the swan, and we're going to paint her first. I'm going to add some cerulean blue to my canvas, I'm going to add some cerulean blue to my palette, some cadmium yellow, some titanium white as well. And I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna mix a very light blue with a little bit of neon pink, just a touch of yellow. And I'm gonna add a little more blue. So we get this wonderful, almost lilac purple color. I'm gonna go in and I'm just gonna paint the entire swan, her body, with this lilac color. Leaving her beak out. Then I'm gonna add some white to that color, a little bit of pink, a little tiny bit of yellow. Then I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna add some highlights near the front of her body. Then I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna mix a shadow color. So I'm gonna do neon pink, blue, tiny, tiny bit of yellow again. Put too much yellow, so adding more blue and pink again. Some white. I don't want the shadow to be too dark. It's gonna be more of like a medium gray blue. More on the lighter side, I should say. Because remember, this swan is glowing, so we want these colors to be light, and the water around her will illuminate her as well, and then it'll transition to a dark color. So she's got a shadow back here as well. We got a shadow back here. So she's starting to take some shape, right? You can see her wings and her neck. There's going to be a little shadow down here. I'm going to go in to this lilac color. Actually, I'm going to mix a lilac color by adding some pink to my gray mixture. And I'm going to go and add top of her head. And here near the front of her body. Some pink. And as you add this pink into your swan, I want you to think about why pink is the absolute best color in the world. I definitely don't have an agenda here, but if I did have one, it would be to show you how wonderful the color neon pink is. So that's coming together, and I'm gonna start on her beak now. What I'm gonna do is mix a dark purple for her beak. So we're gonna go in, take our blue and our neon pink, just a tiny touch of yellow. I'm gonna go in and fill her beak in with this purple. Just for now. Looks a little messy, but trust the process. It will start to come together much more as we create the surrounding area. So I think we're gonna get started with that surrounding area right now before we finish her off. Sometimes it's good to jump around the painting so that you can kind of get the context of your subject. So I don't like to finish one particular piece before I move on to the next part of the painting. It's really important for me to see my subject more in context of what I'm imagining and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the sky, and then I will move to the water. And in order to start with the sky, I'm actually going to introduce a couple of new colors. One of them is going to be cyan blue from Golden Acrylics, and the other is going to be quinacridone magenta, which is a color that I absolutely adore and work with a lot as well. So I'm gonna go in and just grab some cyan blue, put it on my palette. A little different than the cerulean blue. Then I'm gonna go in with my quinacridone magenta right next to the cyan blue. And I'm gonna actually use the Liquitex fluorescent pink for this part, just because I have more of it on hand. So I'm gonna start by mixing a couple different values of the water. So nearest to the swan is going to be a vibrant neon pink. And in order to get that, I'm simply just going to use neon pink and surround the swan with that color because she's illuminating the water around her. And it's gonna, because of the perspective that we're seeing her come in from, she's coming in from this way, she's gonna illuminate more of the water toward the viewer, so here. So I'm just gonna start with that. And I'm loving how these colors are looking together. Then I'm going to mix a little bit of a lighter, purpley color with a little bit of quinacridone magenta, a little bit of cyan blue, a lot of neon pink. And I'm going to go right around that and just add that in. And we're going to do the cyan blue, quinacridone magenta, and a little bit of cadmium yellow. So this is going to be your darkest shade, and I'm just going to put it right in on the horizon. And then I'm going to add a little bit of white, a little bit of pink, because as it moves closer to the swan, it's going to actually lighten up a bit and become illuminated. I'm just adding more pink and more white as I get closer to our swan friend. And for this, you might have to do a couple layers because some of these paints are a little more transparent. So it could help to just do a couple of layers. To get that smooth blend that you want. So I'm coming in with a medium on this side because the moon is also a little bit of a light source. So the moon's going to illuminate the water as well. Now I want this back area to be a little bit more on the blue end of purple, so I'm adding a little bit of blue to that dark purple. I'm just going right in and adding that back there. Rinsing my brush off, and I'm gonna go in and add some more pink and some more white to my mixture. So I'm just increasing the value, or I'm making the value lighter and also more saturated. So I'm just gonna come right in here and add that there. I'm going back into this darker purple and I'm coming right around this swan here. Now I'm gonna blend this right now, knowing that I'm gonna come back in with another layer because of the nature of this paint, and I want a nice smooth blend that I can't, it's hard to achieve that with just one layer. So finish this area just knowing that you might have to go back in and do another gradient around your swan. So like I said, it's gonna look a little odd for a little bit, but we'll get there. You just have to trust the process. You really do. So I'm gonna go back in and I'm going to add more of this neon pink around her. I need to grab more neon pink on my palette. So I'm gonna add it there. And I like to run these acrylics on my brush a little bit so they can seep into the brush and they can apply on the canvas well. But also, all acrylics have chemicals in them that kind of sit in the bottle as they sit on your shelf or wherever they are, and they can settle. And you want to mix those chemicals up so that the paint can bind to the canvas correctly. So it does help if you just get a little bit of movement on your brush and continue to do that before you put it onto your canvas. So this is coming along. I'm actually liking how it's looking. Of course, I need to do another layer. It looks a little a little hectic right now, but it's in a spot that I want it to be in. And I like to, when I do my pink, when I want to make something glow, I typically bring my layer of thick pink out pretty far so that I can adjust as I go. So I do want to bring it in a little bit in the back here. That makes sense. So it's in a decent spot right now. I'm going to leave it because if I keep moving the paint around, it could ruin this layer. So I'm going to leave it and I'm going to move on to the sky. And I'm actually going to do a very, very similar thing with the sky here. And my moon is looking a little oblong. So I'm going to go in to my underpainting. I'm just going to add a dot where I want the moon to be. So it's more circular. And it's going to be a small moon. So I just like to take my pointed brush and just, you know, add a little dot. And I'm going to wait a second for this to dry before I do the sky because I tend to like to rest my hand in places where I shouldn't rest it. And then I ruin the layer or I get it all over my arm and the process becomes tricky. So I'm going to just wait a second before I do the sky and let this dry. So I'll meet you back for the next step. Okay, now I'm going to do a very similar thing that I did with the swan, with the sky. And I'm going to go around my moon. I'm just going to add a ton of pink. And we're going to blend right over that. So for our sky, it's going to be darkest near the top. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to mix cyan blue, cadmium yellow, and magenta. It's going to give us a very, very dark, almost black purple. I'm going to go in near the top of the sky with that color. It's going to be very, very dark. And then I'm going to add some pink, a little bit of white, a little bit of blue. Go in. And adding more pink again. Okay. And then I'm gonna add more pink again and more blue. And I'm just gonna leave the moon out a little bit for now. Just blend this together as a gradient. And I like to use my mister bottle to just re-wet the paint so that I can blend it nicely. I'm just going to go around the moon here with my medium purple. It's good to mix a decent amount of paint when you're mixing colors so that you can go right back in if you need more of it. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to add a ton of pink, a little bit of that medium purple, some white. So I'm going to mix this neon-y purple. I'm going to go right around the moon. You can see it coming to life here. Just right around. And I'm going to bring this darker color in. I think they call this a corona, the light that surrounds the moon. Or maybe not. I love studying sky phenomena, but then I forget. I forget it when I need to whip it out. So I just keep going around until I like the blend. And I really like to go in again with multiple layers because when you're painting on a canvas sometimes it doesn't quite fill in the teeth of the canvas as much as you'd like it to. And that's okay. You can just go right in with another layer to get the effect that you want. Now, I prepped this canvas by gessoing it a couple of times, and I usually like to also sand my canvas after I gesso it and allow it to dry. So that helps a lot with the smoothness and blending as well. I've noticed a huge difference since I've started gessoing my canvases and sanding them by hand. It just allows you to get such a wonderful blend, and also the brushes glide on the canvas much better when you have it gessoed. The paints also, as I mentioned, paints have chemicals in them and they adhere to the canvas better if you gesso it. So I'm in a good spot for the sky now. I'm going to move back into the water around the swan because I think it is dry. So I'm going to go back into this dark area, and what I'm going to do is mix I'm going to need some more cyan blue, actually. So I'm going to grab some more cyan blue for my palette. And I do love to use a limited palette in my paintings. I feel like it gives my paintings a much more harmonious look, and it makes the process a little simpler for me in the sense that I can really just focus on contrast and saturation, which are two things that I really focus on in my work. So I'm gonna go in just gonna grab a couple brushes that I need really quick. So I'm gonna go in again, just like I did before, and I'm gonna add this wonderful bright neon pink from Liquitex. And it's gonna be its brightest right here, right in front. So I'm gonna go in, really focus there. Then I'm going to mix some quinacridone magenta, little tiny bit of yellow and neon pink, lots and lots of neon pink. Some white, or I'm sorry, some more neon pink and some white. And I'm gonna do this value mixture again where I just mix from my darkest color to my lightest color in the water, and I'm gonna need again more neon pink because I can just never get enough. Some white, and here's this nice medium purple that I wanted, and I'm going to go right in under the pink and add that purple. I'm going to go back into that pink. Whoops, I dropped my brush. Sometimes painting can be a sport too. I'm totally joking, but I'm gonna grab my brush really quick. Rinse that brush off. So then I'm gonna go and I'm gonna blend just continue to lay this medium purple down. And fill in those areas that didn't quite become opaquely filled with my paint. Just going in and thickly applying the paint where it needs to go. That medium purple color. I'm going to come in back here and add a touch of pink. And just continue blending. Blending out. And it looks like I have to do that here as well. So I'm going to go in add my purple under there. And then I also have to add some pink back here because this moon is illuminating the water. But it's not going to be as brightly as our swan is illuminating, so it's a little more muted back here. And I want more contrast. So I'm going to go and darken this area back here. And I also want to bring some water ripples into this scene. So I'm going to go in with my dark purple. I'm just going to touch the canvas a little bit. And I also want to darken it down here for a little vignette effect. I'm just going to go in with my dark purple and I'm just going to add that. While the paint is still a little wet, I can just go in and add those little details. And have fun with it. Just, you know, little loose little waves around the swan. So I'm going to mix cyan, magenta, tiny bit of yellow again, a little bit of pink, really dark color, but I'm going to add it back here again. So it wasn't quite dark enough. I like to have really high contrast in my paintings. And then down here I'm going to add that really dark color again to reinforce that vignette effect. So now that we've done the water, we've done the sky, and that's just the first pass of the sky. I think I'm going to go in and do it again. I'm going to do a little bit more work on the swan. And in order to do that, I'm going to go back in and mix the cerulean blue, which we haven't used in a little bit, neon pink, little tiny touch of yellow. And I added too much yellow, so I'm adding more pink and more cerulean to give it a muted purple color. And we're going to whiten that. And I have this muted purple. I wanted a little more blue, so I'm going to add a tiny bit more of cerulean blue. And you can do whatever color you want, of course, but I'm going to go with this nice muted bluish purple, and I'm going to add the shadows again where I see them to give some definition to my swan and give her some form again. I'm going to go back in and add a shadow behind the neck. Also going to add a shadow right under her beak here. Now she has an orange beak in reality, but I'm going to give her, because I love the color purple and pink as you know, I'm going to give her a purple beak. And I'm going to mix my neon pink and my cyan blue and a little tiny bit of white to get this nice bluish purple color. And I'm going to go into her beak and I'm going to add that. Now, she's glowing, so I'm going to add more neon pink to that color, a little touch of white, and add a little bit to the bottom of her beak for that glow, and we'll add more of that as well. Now I'm going to go in and add some white and pink together to create a very bright neon pink. And I'm going to add that to the front of her body just to add some light. And these are just going to be some strokes, just random strokes, because I want to add some texture to the piece and a little bit of illumination. Now, swans have this black area that connects their beak to their eye. And I want to do that. I want to add that in. I'm going to add that in now. Okay, so I'm going to take a smaller pointed brush because we're going to go in and add this little dark part that connects the swan's beak to her eye and face. And I'm just mixing my cyan with my pink again and a tiny bit of yellow just to make it a dark muted purple. And this is what it looks like. Now I want it darker because I want it to be darker than the beak, and it looks very similar right now. So I'm going to go in and add a little bit of quinacridone magenta to darken this color, a little bit of yellow, and that looks substantially dark. And I don't want it black because I want to use black for the eye. So, actually, I don't like that. That's not right. Okay, so I'm gonna go in, if you could just cut that, sorry. I'm gonna go in and just add this little area by the beak, and that's too big, so I'm just gonna, I need a smaller brush. This brush is a little too big for me. So I'm gonna go in and grab a smaller pointed brush for this detail and just go and add this triangle. And that looks about right. I'm gonna go in and clean that up there. And I'm gonna go back in with my pink. And add that there so that the beak is illuminated again. Now, the eye is right here, and I'm gonna go in with, again, quinacridone magenta, cyan, a little bit of yellow. This is essentially our darkest value, darkest color that we're using. And I'm just gonna add a little tiny dot there. That's where the eye is gonna be. And you can see now I'm gonna go in with my medium purple that I mixed, and I'm gonna add some ripples in this pink right around the swan. And I'm gonna grab this darker purple and go in and add more ripples again, like I did before. And I realized I want to kind of add this medium purple back in behind the swan. And underneath here. I think that makes more sense. I'm going to go in again and add some more pink right here because I don't really like how that blended. So I'm going to go in and give it some more attention. What I love about acrylic paint is that it's so forgiving. You can go right over quite a bit. Because we're doing light effects, it is important to kind of know where you want to put your most vibrant area before you start the painting, but I often make adjustments and find that it works out. I find acrylic paints to be such a forgiving medium. So I'm going in with my Just Neon, and I'm adding some ripples around our swan friend with this neon because she's illuminating the scene around her. And I strive to illuminate the scenes around me as well. I want to be just like this beautiful swan. And a couple back here. I always say this whenever I paint with anyone, but I hope you're having as much fun as I am because I'm really enjoying this. So soothing. So I'm gonna go in with my white neon pink, and I'm going to just emphasize the top of her head. Just add some color to her tail here. I'm going to add more white, and I'm going to just add some dots here and also the front of her neck. So kind of like where we are with our swan. Actually, I'm going to add a couple more ripples around her. Go in with some glazy medium white neon pink and go right around her. And add a couple more of those ripples just gently where I added the neon pink. And I think what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go into the sky and add another layer because it looks a little hectic right now. So I'm gonna mix. I'm gonna do this mixture that I've done a couple of times now. It's quinacridone magenta with cyan blue, a little tiny touch of cadmium yellow, some of my neon pink. And this is going to be a really dark color. I'm going to put it right up here because I do want a high contrast sky. And I do like to have high contrast in my paintings. I'm going to add some white to that very color and some more neon pink. I'm going to add that right underneath this dark area. I'm going to blend it in. And now I'm going to add neon pink. And I'm gonna go right around the moon with that same mixture, but with tons of neon pink added. And I'm going to add white to that. And that's going to be my lightest shade right down here. I'm gonna add some water so I can blend that even better. Now, it's okay to do multiple layers of these gradients just to get the right soft blend that you want. And sometimes I do that. Sometimes I go in and I do many, many, many layers of a gradient blend just to get it right where I want it. I'm gonna go back and add a little tiny bit of purple here and blend this out. Add this darken again. And we have a very smooth blend here. Now I'm gonna go in again, and you can probably guess this, but I'm gonna add more neon pink right around the moon. Just going in with my neon pink and just adding it into this mixture here. I'm sorry, just adding it right to the canvas. And I think I'm gonna go in and add more dark details to the waves. So I'm just going into my cadmium red quinacridone, tiny bit of cadmium yellow mixture, and I'm just gonna, let me make more. So quinacridone, magenta, cyan. I think I misspoke. So I'm actually going into my quinacridone, magenta, cyan, and cadmium yellow mixture, and I'm adding a little bit of glazing gel so it doesn't apply so thickly. And I'm gonna go in and just add dark ripples again, as I did before, with this dark color. And I'm gonna add a couple back here. Here's the fun part about mixing a lot of color. You can go in and edit your painting quite a bit. So like I see this head is a little, just a touch misshapen. And I don't want to do that to my beautiful swan that I put so much time into. So I'm just going to go in and edit that a little bit. And I'm going to go in with my neon pink, cyan blue mixture, and I'm going to make the beak a little longer. So I think it does. There we go. That looks more like it. So it's kind of a purpley blue beak that we got going on. And I'm going to add a tiny bit of pink to that, like I do with every single color, because I'm just such a pink girl. And add a little bit of that between the beak and the nose. Okay, so we have our lovely swan floating in, and I actually kind of want to add, I may add some distant trees back here, but first do want to come in and just kind of I'm going to go in again, and I'm going to add more neon pink to our ripples. I'm just going to go straight into the neon pink. Swish it around on my brush. And just add it again to our scene. Now remember that the perspective of the swan, she's coming toward us and the water is closer to the viewer. So these ripples that are closer are going to be larger, and the ones that are closer to her are going to be a little bit smaller. And of course the ripples back there near the back of the painting, where as we get further back, they're going to be smaller because they're more distant. And I'm going to actually add another shadow to our swan friend. So I'm just going to mix cerulean blue, neon pink, tiny bit of cadmium yellow. This is going to be the darkest shadow on her back here. And a little bit back here too. Gonna add some pink right here on this. Oh, nope, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna go in and add some neon pink. So I'm gonna go back where the shadows are and add a little bit of neon pink there. And I'm gonna mix neon pink and white as I have before. I'm just gonna go into her neck and add that. Okay. I'm actually going to get more neon pink. And also gonna mix a neon pink, cyan blue, just a touch, little touch of yellow just to mute it a tiny, tiny bit, some white, and some of my glazing gel, which just gives me a little bit of a transparent mixture. And I'm just going to go in and add some ripples with that color. Just to give some more movement to this piece. I'm just lightly adding this into the painting. Just wherever I see fit, not too much thinking goes into this part, for me, at least. Okay, now for me, this is the fun part. I'm going to go into my pink, and I'm going to just add some dots right around their swan because she's illuminating. And I see this as an opportunity to show how light looks when it's... I see it as it's moving, if that makes sense. So I like to add colorful dots. And I like to imagine the dots bigger as they move closer to the viewer in the painting because of perspective. So if you're following along and you want to paint this like I do, then make sure that your dots are bigger as they get closer to the front of the painting. And smaller as they move toward the back of the painting. And I like them to follow the ripples of the water. So back here they're gonna get a little more faded and distant, of course. Just a little more light on the application near the back because, like I said, they're going to be more faded and distant. Now, I'm going to go in and I'm going to add pink and white together to create a very light pink, and it's going to be the same idea. So I'm going to add some dots around our beautiful swan as she illuminates the water around her. And then as I did not like that one. As I add more, I just follow the perspective and I make them larger. Now I'm gonna go in with my pink again, and I'm gonna add a lot of white to my pink. I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna highlight the front of the neck and the front of her body here. And back here as well. I'm just kind of covering my shadows with the pink. And I'm gonna go back in with that same muted purple color I used and just trace the shadows again. This is a very loose, fun painting, so I'm not being too particular about details. I'm just kind of doing whatever feels right for me. And you can do the same. You don't have to use these colors. You can do whatever feels right for you. Now I'm gonna go in with my pink, just solid neon pink. I'm just gonna add some dots of pink back here and going up to the front a little bit. Going back in with my neon pink, and I'm going to kind of reinforce some of the dots I made and add some more. It's okay to do multiple layers if you want of the same color. Sometimes that's how I achieve the vibrancy that I want. Now I'm gonna go in with pure white, which I know is a cardinal sin for some painters, but I like to use white as I see fit, and I'm gonna go right in front of this swan's neck and add a tiny, tiny line of white for highlight, and right in front of her body, right here, and add that white. And I'm gonna go right around her where her body meets the water, and just add a little tiny bit of white dots to indicate that it's wet there. There's water moving, and I'm going to go ahead and add some white dots right around her as well. And kind of just follow these ripples. I'm going to go back in. I'm going to do this white line again. I want it a little bit thicker. And go. And now I'm going to go back into the sky, and we're going to do another layer of the sky. And I know we've done so many layers. I apologize. It's a lot of layers. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do, right? The process can be tough, but sometimes that's how you get the effect that you want. Just going in and being able to do it again and again. So I'm going in with my quinacridone magenta, cyan blue, cadmium yellow. I'm actually gonna cover this entire top area with that color because I want more contrast in the sky. Contrast is good. I feel that it adds a lot of visual interest to a painting. And I love playing with light effects and thinking about that in my work as well. So I'm going to add some neon pink to that mixture that I just made, and some white. Now I'm going to add more cyan blue because I didn't like how light that was. I wanted it to veer more blue. So I'm going to go in and lay this down. And I'm just spraying the canvas so the paint moves around a little easier. And I'm going to add some neon pink and white to that mixture. Quite a bit of neon pink. And I'm going to go right around this moon with that color. And then I'm going to go in with this medium purple. Now, if you want, you can add tape, painter's tape, here on the horizon so you don't have to think too much about getting a perfect straight line, and I would have done that. I just skipped that step in my process. I'm going to go in with a little bit of neon white. Right around the moon again. And I love doing this. I don't know why. I just love illuminating the moon in the sky. It's just such a beautiful aspect of my paintings when I add them. I just love how the moon illuminates the darkness. I know it's so simple, but So the sky is in a good spot now for me. And I'm gonna go in with my pure white. And I'm going to, add a little bit of neon pink to that pure white. And I'm just gonna go right in the center, and I'm just gonna add a little dot of that to brighten up our moon. I'm gonna go in with my neon pink and a little bit of white. And I'm going to highlight this back wing here a little bit. Grabbing this light blue, and I'm just going in and adding a couple of light blue details back into the swan's body. And I'm going to need a little bit more titanium white, so I'm putting that back onto my palette. And I'm adding more white to that blue mixture. Get an even lighter blue. And I'm going in and I'm adding that light blue to the swan. I'm going to go in with my neon pink, and I'm going to outline the back of this swan's head. Well, I shouldn't say the back of the head, this area on the head. I really need to get my swan terminology down. Now I see this area didn't blend well, but actually I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna add some trees just to break up the sky a little bit, and I may also add some clouds. So I'm gonna mix again a quinacridone, magenta, a little tiny bit of cadmium yellow, cyan blue. We're gonna get this very dark purple color, and that's what we want. I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna actually add some trees that start low and continue to go higher. And I'm just adding random strokes in. I'm just having fun with it. I'm not thinking about it too much. They're distant trees, so they're not going to be extremely detailed or have a very specific shape. And it's actually okay to go in and add these when the paint's still wet, because you get this nice soft blend, and you get kind of a little bit of a variety of values, just slightly, not too much, but the paint's still a little wet in the sky there, so that's what I'm seeing. So I'm just going in and adding those trees just to kind of bring the composition more toward our swan friend and add some visual interest. And I really enjoy this addition. I think it adds to the piece. And if you're adding trees as well, have fun with it. Just let your hand move as it wants. I'm going to go in with my neon pink, white, and my glazing gel, which I love. And I'm just going to add ripples again with that color. And we're also gonna take that, I'm gonna take that pink, and I'm just gonna suggest a little bit of light from the moon on our water back here. Just a little bit, just a couple lines to show that the moon is illuminating too. And I'm gonna go into my pure white again because I did not, I don't think I applied it thickly enough. I'm gonna put some right here underneath our swan's chin area. And I'm gonna go into that neon pink plus white. And I'm gonna add it again right here, right on her neck. And there we go. She looks like she has a little bit of blush on too. I love that. Now I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna mix a muted purple. So again, quinacridone, magenta, cyan, blue, a little bit of yellow. I want it to be more on the blue end. And I have this muted blue color here you can see. And I'm just gonna go in and I'm gonna add some clouds. Just nice and not thinking about it too much again, because clouds are all over the place. And I really like how those are coming in. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some pink and white to that color. It's gonna look more purpley than blue. And I'm gonna go where the moon would illuminate the cloud. So the light's coming from here, so I'm gonna go and add that lighter purple, and it's going to hit this cloud from down here. So I'm just going to add that there. Just nice and gently. And I'm going to go in with a flat brush and kind of blend it out a little bit so the clouds look more fuzzy. Now this paint is still a little wet, so that's why I'm able to blend it out. And I applied this paint very thickly, so it stayed wet for a longer amount of time than acrylic typically stays wet. So if you want this effect, you can simply just use more water on your paintbrush, or with a glazing gel, you can mix your paint with the glazing gel and then spray it with a water bottle and blend it out, and you can get a very similar, if not the exact same effect. Now I'm gonna go in and I'm actually gonna add more light on the clouds to show the moon illuminating. So I'm gonna add even more pink and white to that mixture. And this painting is a little more involved than I had planned. I hope that's okay. I originally just wanted to do the swan and not much else, but I got inspired by this process, so I hope you'll get inspired too. Because I truly think anyone can paint, and I think everyone should try it. It's a lot of fun. Once you get past the perfectionism or the fear of, not being quote unquote talented enough, it can be really fulfilling. So I'm actually going to go in and add some wispy clouds closer to the moon. So I'm just going in with that lighter color, and I'm just going right in and adding some wispy clouds. Like I said, my paint is still wet, so I'm able to blend, to continue blending. But I can get a very similar effect if I use the glazing gel. I love the glazing gel. I'm going to go back into my blue that I mixed for the base of the clouds. I'm going to add it in more because I kind of lost it with the blending. Just give some dimension to these clouds again. And I go back in and add stuff a lot, so don't worry if you have to like go in and add more of this or that. And then as we get closer to this moon here, we're actually going to see oh gosh, I'm running out of neon pink. No! So I'm going to go in with a lot of neon pink and I'm going to go in with a lot of neon pink and not a lot of white, just mostly neon pink. And I'm going to illuminate these clouds even more, the ones closer to the moon, because they would be even more illuminated. And I'm gonna go in with more white because it's not as opaque as I want it to be. So I'm gonna go in with a little more white and just a touch of that on these clouds. And I'm gonna go into that neon pink plus white. And what you can do, this is optional, this is just my personal style. I love doing this. It comes from my own experience. But I'm just gonna make little stars around the swan where I made those dots, those colorful dots. And like I said, this is not, you can skip this step if you don't want to do it yourself. And I'm just going to add a couple, just a couple. And I'm following the perspective of this piece, so the ones that are closer to the viewer are going to be a little bigger, and the ones that are more toward the center or the back of the painting are going to be smaller. Now here's the last, very last step. I'm going to go into my neon pink, and I'm going to go to this moon, and I'm going to just make a circle around the moon with this neon pink. The very last step. Well, actually, I lied. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go in with the neon pink and a little bit of white. You know, if I don't end somewhere, I'm gonna be here with you all day. So after this step, I'm gonna have one more little step, and then we'll stop there. I'm just gonna highlight the bottom of the beak with this pink and white. This tiny detail brush that I love from Treckle. It was gifted to me. Thank you so much to my friend who gifted me this wonderful Treckle set. It's completely helped me with my paintings. I just cannot stop using it. And then I'm gonna add a little pink to this. Actually, I'll just add it to this bottom of the beak here. And then we're gonna take our, you can take whatever color you want, but I'm gonna take my neon pink, a little bit of white, and I'm gonna sign my piece. And remember to always sign your pieces. I forget quite a bit. So there is our wonderful glowing swan painting. I hope that you had fun. Thank you so much for painting with me. I could be here with you all day. Let me know if you enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know if you'd like to see any other tutorials. I really love filming these and painting with you all. I could paint all day and all night. So please join me for the next one. Don't forget to comment, subscribe, and like. You know what to do. I also have a lot of originals and prints at paxpaints.com if you like to support my work. I will also have this painting available for purchase as well if you want to have it for yourself. And thank you again for joining me in this painting. I hope to see you again in the next one.